We're going to be talking now a little bit about why it's that popularity is so important. How some this is something that is affecting us so much when we're young, and how come it's something we seem to kind of gravitate towards for the rest of your lives. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Now, I think I'm going to point out in is the idea that this has become really explicit. Have you ever noticed recently if you're on the verb? There's a lot of information about that trending. Whether you're on Twitter or whether you're just even looking at news stories or anything you see, you'll sometimes see this graphic that talk about how many times has a story been tweeted, or how many people have liked on it on Facebook, or how many comments are there. And often it's right at the top of the story. In fact, even after you done reading the story, there's maybe those icons again, encouraging you like, you should tweet about it, you should like it on Facebook. Why it is happening? We've kind of almost ground accustomed to it. I think now on the reasons why this happening, it's because it's based on this fundamental premise that if we see that a lot of people are really interested in something, we will think somehow it's good, it's important. We want to do what everyone else is going. Ever if we resist then idea and we think no, I'm an individual. I don't just conform. Still, we're kind of a bit influenced by that. We think, well, if that something that 3,000 other people have liked, then it must be something really important that I need to look at. It's the same thing when you watch a commercial and they say this is the number one movie at the box office. They're really trying to pull on the idea that is popular and therefore that means it's good. But why doesn't that work so well? Why do we even care about the fact that everyone else is doing it? I mean, I want to read the news stories that I think are of interest to me. And I don't think my interests are going to be the same of 10,000 other people that read the same news story. So why would I automatically think that that's important? It turns out that a lot of this might have to do with the way that we developed it as a species, and the way that we can think about that is we took a step way back and thought about this from an evolutionary perspective. So let's go back to the word of caveman and cavewoman. So have you ever noticed how if you wow, then other people around you will yum? Yawns are kind of contagious. Or have you ever heard that when a woman live together in close clusters or spend a lot or time together, their menstrual cycles will start to synchronize? That all has to do with the same idea here. It's the sense that when we were cave people a long time ago, we quickly learned that we're going to do a lot better if we live together. And if we kind of pay attention to signals from each other. So if you think about it, if you went on your own, well, you would have a hard time getting food, right? And if you got food and you call it something like Giant Wilder best or whatever, you're not going to be able to eat all of that all by yourself. So it's really inefficient. And if you try to save the rest of it, it's going to spoil and you're going to get sick and die and evolutionary you're going to be weeded out. So we really learn that then it comes to food the same with safety, protection one or another. Or when it comes to other way or uh, codating activities like when should we all go to sleep. That way we can all go to the next part of we're a nomadic group. So that helps us get to the next part of where we are trying to move to. It would be good if that was as synchronized and we were in a herb and we learned to be a herb. We should all eat together, we should all protect each other. If you are living that herb, that those things will be threatened. You won't get food, you want to be safe, you won't stop at the same times as other, and you might get kicked out. You might be alone, you might be unsafe, and that's not good for you. The people that did that, they were weeded out throughout natural selection. We are the people that suffer by learning to pay attention to what the herb has to say. It turns out that has had a really cool indelible effect on how your brains are put together. But we just recently discovered this in a way that we kind of didn't even expect. So there have been a lot of researchers that have been interested in understanding how the brain works. And in particular, there have been a lot of people that have looked at how the brain kind of lights up in an fMRI, let's say, when we experience pain. So what I mean by that is there have been a lot of studies where they have asked people to lie down in fMRIs. That there are particular areas that tell us that we're experiencing pain, and there are areas that tells us it's time to start regulating this pain and learn something about it. Now the parts of our brain that signal pain, it's really important because the pain is our way of. It's the brain's way of telling us something very seriously is happening. You need to something about it. This is going to threaten your survival. So pain is kind of the most powerful signals that our brains can give us to tell us that if we want to something soon, we may die, or your species may be in trouble. Well, an interesting thing happens. So, there were some researchers, including Naomi Eisenberger from UCLA, who decided to do some studies looking at the people in the fMRI meeting in the magnet. In a way, it was kind of like they were getting a signal saying, you getting kicked out of the herd. You're not part of the group anymore, you're getting excluded. It turns out we're very surprised to find that when people got the signal to say that they were getting excluded, the parts of their brain that lit up were the parts of the brain that light up when we experience real psychological pain. And this kind of led to the idea that there might to be something called social pain. We experience social exclusion in the exact same way that we experience psychological pain. In fact, there even a research to say that if you take a Tylenol, then that helps your social pain go down. It's the idea that we experience psychological symptoms from a social rejection experience. So it kind of suggests that there's some way that the lack of popularity makes us experience pain. And our brain is telling us with its most powerful signal, you need to do something about this. Don't get kicked out of the herd. Make sure that us are safe. It turns out that there's some other research also that has to do with our DNA. Some genes turn on later, and some genes never turn on. But what we recently learned in epigenetics is that sometimes that makes those cells turn on certain DNA is something that happens in our environment. So, believe it or not, someone could walk in the room, they could say hello to you, or they could say something not pleasant to you that kind of reject you. So, if an experience happens to you now, the cells that will start growing 2 seconds from now are going to start relying on the DNA that was activated by that happened to you before. In fact, it's been suggested that every 6 months or so we are the person that is reactive to what happened to us, and those priors kills about 6 months ago. So for the same research we talked about before with hunting and with our evolutionary legacy, we learned that if something happens to us that makes us feel rejects, that our bodies turn on specific DNA, and the DNA they turn on has to do with our psychical health. So again, let's think again about cave people. If you were a person that was living back in those times, once the things that happened when you lived with other is you found that you got a lot of colds, and all the genes that help us to resist viruses are upregulating. In other words, they are kind of turn on. If you were part of a herd, there was much less of a chance that a dishonest was going to come and eat your arm off. Therefore, you wouldn't have to have a lot of inflammatory types of responses in your body to quick heal that bleeding limb and keeping you to survive. You wouldn't need that kind of pro-inflammatory protection as much. Well, that happens is a minute we get rejected by other. We actually find that the genes that helps us resist the viruses become down regulated. In fact, you can make a blood test 40 minutes later and find that you can see the sign of that so quickly. So it turns out that popularity is actually changing the way that our DNA expresses. This has major impression for health. And it turned out that there a way that has a feedback loop into our brains, and it even changes our mood and our experience too. and we talk about more of that later. So, in summary, it's important to remember that one of the reasons why we seem to care so much about popularity is that our species thought about being in the herd as something we needed for safety. And the minute that we lose popularity, our body is preparing. As for that, will happen when we're kicked out of the herd, and our brain telling us with its most powerful signal you are needing to do something to fix this. Go back to others, do what you can, and be part of the group. And that's really important. Our DNA is changing. This is all very adaptive. But unfortunately, it's not really helpful for us today in the millennium that we live in now. You can go out for a fun walk on your own and not get eaten by a dinosaur. So, unfortunately, our bodies are helping us in a way that would have been useful millions of years ago, but isn't not necessarily helpful in today's society. And that's some of the reasons why popularity plays such a hard role today. But it has effect on us that aren't necessarily what we would have wished for.